Oh boy, you probably can hear that. Yet again, there is a torrential, crazy storm going on. It is a nor'easter, 70-mile-per-hour wind gusts. I lost the cap to one of my chimneys. It just blew off. It's like this 40-pound cap. It went flying through the air off of 3 stories into my backyard and landed. It felt like there was an earthquake. It's amazing nobody died. It's really crazy. I wonder if the banjo gods are telling me something. Maybe they're telling me to stop, but I'm not going to stop. Banjo gods be damned. We're going to forge ahead. So before we get into the meat of today's lesson, I did want to let you guys know that I just got interviewed by an old-time banjo and fiddle blog. It's written by a guy named Brad Kramer. He's actually a Banjo Blitz viewer and has been writing this blog for quite some time. He also does articles for the Old Time Herald and some other magazines. And he did this article. His questions were so interesting, so engaging. He was so easy to deal with, such a nice guy, and I think the article came out really good. And so I urge you to go check it out. Go leave him some comments. I'm going to leave a link to the article in the description below. Go leave him some love and encourage him, because I think he's doing a real service to the old time and traditional music community by this wonderful blog he has out. And the fact that he's a Banjo Blitz viewer makes it kind of cool too. He's one of you guys. So go give him some encouragement. And let's get on to this video. Okay, today we're going to take a track from last week's video and use audio software to quickly make it sound better. To do this, you'll need your raw audio track imported into your computer. You'll also need audio editing software. There are free examples of this like Garage Band or Audacity, which will come with everything you need to do this. For the purposes of this video, I'm going to be using Logic Pro. It's just what I've been using for years. I really enjoy using it. I'm comfortable with it, so that's what I'm going to be using today. It is very similar to Garage Band, so it actually has the exact same equalizer as I'm going to use today. So you should see some parity there between Logic and GarageBand if that's what you're using. And most equalizers really work the same way. So everything I show you here is going to be usable on any decent equalizer. Also critical to this video, you're not going to hear the differences very well if you're just using an iPhone speaker or other lo-fi playback device. If you really want to hear what's going on, grab a set of headphones, earbuds, or just speakers. All right, the big question, of course, is that you're asking, you're staring at this software here. It looks really technical. There are lots of numbers. Banjo players don't do numbers very well. I only say that because I'm one of them. And you're probably like, why? Why is he doing this? Why does this matter? And I think it matters a ton. It wasn't until I dove into the recording process that I really understood or started to understand what makes sound good. And it fed right back into my banjo playing. So about 10 years ago, I got into the process of self-recording, and I was really unhappy with the results I was getting on the recordings. I learned to manipulate those sounds, and I started getting really good results with the recordings, and then I would go back to play the banjo, and I would sound worse than my recordings. So it became this funny loop. And then I started trying to make my banjo sound the way I heard it in the recordings, or the way I forced it to sound in the recordings. And my tone really developed that way. You can learn a lot. Any musician, if you want to understand what makes your instrument sound good, what makes it special in terms of its tone, editing it in an audio program can give you a huge amount of insight into what's going on. It can also train your ears to hear certain things. It wasn't until I dove into using an equalizer that I really understood the component parts of what makes tone rich, compelling, and beautiful. And so that sent me down the rabbit hole of recording. And at this point, I love recording just as much as I love to play the banjo. And that's why I thought I would share this with you today. Now, here's the deal. If you find this incredibly tedious and boring and useless, I want you to comment below and tell me. I want to hear that criticism because I don't know if this is interesting to anybody. It's really interesting to me, but I'm just one dude. You got to tell me if this is boring and you don't want to see anything like this ever again on my channel. Let me know. On the flip side, if you love this and want more of this, I will do more of this because this is just the tip of the iceberg. So leave that in the comments below. Actually, let's have a nerd fight in the bottom of the comments here. Those of you who hate videos like this, I want you to post. Those of you who love videos like this, I want you to post. And those of you who are ambivalent, yeah, you post too. Post something funny. Make me laugh. Yeah, that would be good. Okay, so let's commence with making your tone gorgeous. So we're going to take a recording from last week that I thought was the weakest. This was recorded with an AKG C414, and due to bad placement and just bad general matching of the mic to the instrument, this does not sound good at all. It sounds muddy and veiled, and it's lacking lots of detail, which are actually the qualities I hear the most when students send me recordings of themselves. So that's why I thought this was a good candidate to take a look at. Now today we are going to use an equalizer and only an equalizer to correct the mud and sweeten the overall sound of the recording. Mics don't hear like we hear. So in order to make this recorded sound feel more realistic and natural, we need to massage it a bit. It's counterintuitive. In order to make this sound more real, we need to add some fakery to it. And that's just part of the recording process. All right, let's just take a listen and see what's going on. I'm going to activate the equalizer. These are our low frequencies, so it goes low across to high. So that just to get you oriented on the equalizer, and it's going to analyze the overall sound of what we're hearing. You're going to get to see that in action. Here we go. So there are three things I listen for when I'm working with a audio track from Clawhammer Banjo. The first is the low end. The banjo has really no low end information. It's a mid to high range instrument, so one of the first things I do with all of my recordings is I high pass them. That just means I cut out all of the low garbage that has nothing to do with the sound of the instrument. In this case, I high passed with hardware on the way in, so I don't have to do it now, but I'm going to do it anyway just to show you how I would do it. So I would get my low shelf here, and I would cut at 80 hertz. This gets rid of traffic sounds, airplane noises, refrigerator noises. It gets rid of all that garbagey buzz and low rumble that you don't want in your recordings because it will sap the energy from and clarity from the rest of the sound of the banjo, which is what we really want to focus on. So I'm going to high pass this entire track. The most important part is the next part, and those are the low mids. For whatever reason, Clawhammer Banjo has a buildup of energy in the 300 to 500 hertz area. This changes depending on key, tuning, mic placement, room, and even the player. I also notice that what I'm wearing plays into this. If I'm wearing a heavy sweater or something that absorbs sound, I get a different response from the mic when I'm recording the banjo. So what you need to do, this is the sound in my room on my instrument by me. So you need to take this as a loose guide. Make sure you listen to your own sound to make the final call. Don't just take my settings and map it right onto your stuff. You may not get good results that way. But this is in general, I think, going to work for almost everybody. So in this recording in particular, I'm hearing an energy buildup of at around 350 hertz. So I'm going to cut that to get rid of the haze. Right around there. I'm going to keep it fairly broad. This is called the Q, this parameter that I'm adjusting now. This changes the slope of your adjustment. You can go super surgical, slice out specific frequencies with the Q really narrow like that, or you can go for a really broad Q that is a very natural and transparent sounding move, but it may be too transparent for what we're going for. So I'm going to actually sharpen that Q a little bit. I actually may move it a little bit sharper. One of the problems with using an equalizer like this that I find is that I end up using my eyes a lot. And I think that is a pitfall that is very easy to do when you're using such software that gives you so much information visually. I try to actually, when I'm doing this, close my eyes a lot because I don't want to trust my eyes. I really want to focus on what is coming out of the speakers, what I'm hearing. So anyway, we'll hear how this sounds and I can make adjustments as I go. Yeah, we'll broaden that up a bit. Okay, and the last thing I focus on are the highs. And this is a sensitive part of the spectrum because if you're not careful, you can make your recordings sound too harsh and too bright. Banjo is pretty bright, so if you boost those highs, you can get harsh quick. Most of the time, I try not to boost too much, but this example is really dull, so I'm going to use a high shelf starting at about 5K, and we will see what happens. Maybe even lower. I may go more like 4K. I'm going to boost quite a bit, just so we really hear the difference. Okay, so we're going to shut the EQ off. We're going to listen to the sound without it. And I'll engage. So I just hear so much more detail. It's still not a great sound. I'll be straight up honest with you. I think the highs are just too harsh when I boost it, and a lot of that has to do with the mic and the mic placement. I could have placed this much, much better, but that's another topic for another time. Okay, so that is what that looks and sounds like. Let me just show you an alternative to that. This is another equalizer. This is a more vintage modeled one. Every equalizer sounds different, and it's kind of weird to think about that, but you need to try different equalizers. Some will work better for your sound than others. Some will help mask some of those high-end artifacts and details when you boost. I think this from Waves, this is the Shep 73. I think it's modeled after a Neve, owned by Andrew Sheps, a famous engineer. And this has a bit of a smoother overall sound, I think, and sounds generally better. So I'll show you what that sounds like in just a minute. Let me show you how to decipher these knobs here. This is our high end. I'm boosting 12K by 2 dB, I think, 4 dB. So each one of those dots is a 2 dB dot. Mids, I'm cutting at 360 hertz by about 3 dB. And here I am actually boosting. This is something you can do. I'm boosting around 110 hertz. This allows me to just get a little bit more body. It warms up the sound a little bit on the banjo, which can be really nice. You got to be careful because you can reintroduce that congestion that we were trying to get rid of. And so you just want to walk a fine line with this, but I like this sound. I'll show you in a minute. And then I'm high passing everything from 80 hertz up to get rid of any rumble. All right, so let's listen to it without the EQ, and then I'll punch the EQ and you'll hear it. So that sounds so much better. I like this more than the Logic stock EQ plugin. I think it's a little less harsh. It's a little smoother. I'm still not in love with the sound I'm getting, but it is much better. And I'll just apologize. There was a little pop. That's just this plug-in circuit engaging. It's not as clean as the built-in Logic ones. So you kind of hear it engage, and there's a little pop there. So I apologize for that. Okay, so those are two different EQs on this track. I think it sounds much better. The biggest thing to remember is experiment and have fun with it. This is you getting to know your own tone and trying to understand what makes tone beautiful. And any way that you can make your sound beautiful is fair game. There are no rules. Don't listen to anybody who tries to impose rules on this stuff. This is art. You need to just do it and play with it, take risks and mangle the sound and see what sounds good. I do, just to go against my own advice, I do have some thoughts for you. You want it to sound as natural as possible. So if it does start sounding fake to you, not real, then you need to probably reanalyze. But what sounds not real and not natural to me may sound perfectly natural to you. Everybody hears differently. Give yourself permission to experiment and trust your own ears. I think that's the biggest thing. And ask yourself what you want out of the sound, not anybody else. What do you want to hear? And then try to capitalize on it and capture that. All right, that's it for this week. If you found this video useful, please give it a thumbs up. That will help other people like you find it, which would be really nice. This is just the tip of the iceberg. If you want more, let me know. If you want less, let me know in the comments below, and I will see you next week. I've got a fun video planned for next week. I just want to get started shooting it, which I may do right after this video. I will see you next week. Have a good one.